My name is Marcus Whitfield, and I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I was wrong. The security guard wouldn't meet my eyes as he escorted me past the reception desk, where I'd said good morning every day for over 2 decades. My cardboard box felt heavier with each step. Inside were my coffee mug, a photo of my daughter's graduation, and the compliance manual I'd helped write. Behind me, the executive floor buzzed with whispered conversations. Everyone pretended not to stare. Everyone failed. I'd built the compliance department from nothing, hired every person, trained them myself. We'd kept Meridian Financial spotless through 3 economic crashes and countless regulatory changes. 0 violations, 0 fines, 0 scandals. Until today. The new CEO had different plans. 3 hours earlier, I'd walked into my office like any other Tuesday morning. Coffee first. Always coffee first. Then emails. Then the daily regulatory briefings that kept our investment firm on the right side of federal law. My assistant knocked. "Mr. Whitfield, Mr. Davidson wants to see you upstairs." James Davidson, 6 weeks on the job, Harvard MBA, 42 years old with the kind of confidence that comes from never failing at anything important. The board had hired him to modernize operations and maximize shareholder value. Corporate speak for cutting costs. I straightened my tie and headed to the elevator. The executive floor still smelled like fresh paint from Davidson's renovations. Gone were the conservative grays and blues. Everything was now stark white and chrome. His assistant waved me through without looking up. Davidson sat behind a glass desk, typing on his laptop. He didn't acknowledge me for 30 seconds. Power play. I'd seen it before. "Marcus," he finally glanced up. "Sit." I remained standing. "What can I do for you, James?" His smile was sharp. "I've been reviewing departmental efficiency metrics. Here it comes. Compliance represents 12% of our overhead. For a department that generates 0 revenue, that's unsustainable." "We don't generate revenue," I said carefully. "We prevent catastrophic losses." "Do we, though?" He leaned back. "When's the last time we faced a real regulatory threat?" "Never, because we do our job. Or because the threats don't exist." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "James, one violation could cost us millions. Our reputation is built on performance, not paranoia." He closed his laptop. "I'm restructuring compliance, making it leaner, more efficient." "What does that mean?" "It means your position is eliminated, effective immediately." The words hit like a physical blow. I gripped the back of the chair. "You're firing me?" "I'm thanking you for your service and transitioning your responsibilities to a more cost-effective model." "Who's taking over?" "Jennifer Walsh from legal will absorb the essential compliance functions. Part-time." Jennifer Walsh, 2 years out of law school. Smart kid, but she knew contracts, not regulatory compliance. This wasn't just firing me. This was dismantling everything I'd built. "James, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand that compliance is an expensive insurance policy for problems that rarely materialize. They rarely materialize because of what we do here. Correlation isn't causation, Marcus." I wanted to grab him by his perfectly pressed shirt and shake him. Instead, I kept my voice level. "What about the team?" "Reduced to 3 positions. They'll focus on basic filing requirements." 8 people, 8 families, gone. This is a mistake. This is business. He stood and extended his hand. "Security will escort you out. Your severance package is generous." I stared at his outstretched hand. 22 years of expertise. Dismissed like a rounding error. I turned and walked out without shaking it. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from former colleagues. 12 text messages. The news was spreading fast. My daughter called from Seattle. "Dad, I heard about Meridian. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart." "No, you're not. I can hear it in your voice." She was right. I wasn't fine. I was furious. The doorbell rang. Tom Bradley stood on my porch holding 2 cups of coffee. Tom had worked under me for 15 years before moving to another firm. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing me a cup. We sat on my back deck. October air carried the smell of burning leaves. Davidson's an idiot, Tom said. Davidson's the CEO. Same thing. Tom sipped his coffee. You know what's going to happen, right? I knew. Without proper oversight, corners would be cut, procedures would be ignored. The regulatory framework that protected Meridian would crumble piece by piece. How long do you think they have? Tom asked. Depends on how lucky they get, and when their luck runs out. I thought about the thousands of retirees whose pension funds Meridian managed, the small businesses whose payroll accounts we handled, the young families saving for their first homes. Then a lot of innocent people get hurt. Tom left an hour later. I stayed on the deck until sunset, watching leaves fall from my oak tree. Each one reminded me of another regulation Davidson would ignore, another safeguard he'd eliminate. My phone buzzed, text message from an unknown number. Mr. Whitfield, this is Jennifer Walsh. Can we talk? I'm in over my head. Jennifer and I met at a coffee shop downtown. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Her usual confident demeanor had evaporated. They want me to handle everything you used to do, she said without preamble. I don't even know where to start. What exactly did Davidson tell you? That compliance was mostly paperwork. File some reports, answer emails from regulators, keep basic records. I almost laughed, almost. Jennifer, compliance isn't paperwork. It's preventing disasters. That's what I'm afraid of. She pulled out a folder. Look at this. Inside were dozens of emails from various regulatory agencies. Routine inquiries that required careful, precise responses. One wrong answer could trigger an investigation. I've been stalling for 2 weeks, she said, but they're getting impatient. Show me the SEC inquiry. She handed me a letter dated 3 days ago. The Securities and Exchange Commission wanted clarification on several recent trades. Standard procedure, but it required detailed documentation and specific language. If you answer this wrong, I said, they'll assume you are hiding something. What should I say? I studied her face. Young, scared, trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation. She reminded me of myself 25 years ago. I can't officially advise you, Jennifer. I don't work there anymore. Unofficially? I closed the folder. Unofficially, you need help, professional help, not from a part-time lawyer trying to juggle 2 jobs. Davidson won't hire anyone else. He says you were overcautious, that we can handle this with existing staff. Davidson's wrong, she leaned forward. Prove it. What do you mean? Help me document everything. Every corner they cut, every procedure they ignore, every risk they're taking. When this blows up, and we both know it will, at least we'll have the evidence that someone tried to warn them. It was dangerous. Getting involved could expose me to liability if things went sideways, but sitting back and watching Meridian self-destruct felt worse. I'll help, I said, but we do this carefully. Over the next month, I became Jennifer's shadow consultant. We met twice a week at different locations, coffee shops, restaurants, the public library. She brought me copies of emails, reports, and regulatory correspondence. I helped her craft responses that bought time without triggering investigations. But the problems were multiplying faster than we could solve them. Davidson had cut the compliance staff from 8 to 3. The remaining employees were overwhelmed and undertrained. Basic procedures were being skipped. Required reports were filed late or not at all. It's getting worse, Jennifer said during our 4th meeting. Yesterday, Davidson told me to stop responding to non-urgent regulatory inquiries. Everything is urgent when it comes from a federal agency. That's what I told him. He said I was being dramatic. I reviewed the latest batch of correspondence. The SEC was asking follow-up questions about trades they'd inquired about weeks earlier. The Federal Reserve wanted clarification on capital requirements. The Department of Labor had questions about pension fund management. Jennifer, they're starting to notice the delays. I know, but Davidson won't listen. He thinks regulators are just bureaucrats pushing paper. Regulators are investigators with subpoena power. My phone buzzed. Text from Tom Bradley. Heard from a friend at the Fed. They're asking questions about Meridian. Thought you should know. I showed Jennifer the message. Her face went pale. What does that mean? It means our time just ran out. The call came on a Thursday morning. Jennifer, barely coherent through tears. Marcus, you need to see the news. I turned on the financial channel. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Federal regulators launch investigation into Meridian Financial. The reporter's voice was clinical. Sources indicate the investigation centers on potential violations of federal securities laws and improper handling of client funds. Meridian stock has dropped 40% in pre-market trading. My phone exploded with calls. Former colleagues, industry contacts, reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. I ignored them all and drove to Meridian's headquarters. The parking lot was chaos. News vans, federal agents with boxes of documents, employees standing in clusters looking shell-shocked. I spotted Jennifer near the building entrance. She saw me and ran over. They seized everything, she said. Computers, files, phones. Davidson's locked in his office with lawyers. What triggered it? Remember that SEC inquiry from last month? The one about unusual trading patterns? Davidson told me to send a response saying we had already provided all relevant information. But you hadn't provided anything, and it didn't bid anything. I know, I told him that. He said they were fishing and we shouldn't give them ammunition. Classic mistake. The cover-up always worse than the crime. Where's Davidson now? Conference room with federal investigators. He's been in there for 3 hours. Through the lobby windows, I could see agents photographing documents and sealing boxes with evidence tape. 22 years of careful compliance work, destroyed in 6 weeks of corporate arrogance. Jennifer, you need a lawyer. I can't afford. I know someone. Pro bono work for whistleblowers. Call him today. I wrote down Tom's brother's number. Criminal defense attorney who specialized in white-collar cases. What about you? She asked. I'm going home to wait. For what? For Davidson to realize he needs me. The call came at 11 that night. Marcus? Davidson's voice was barely recognizable. The confidence was gone, replaced by something close to panic. Hello, James. I need your help. I don't work for Meridian anymore, remember? This is serious. The feds are talking about criminal charges. I sat up in bed. What kind of charges? Obstruction of justice, securities fraud. They say we deliberately misled investigators. Did you? Silence. James, did you deliberately mislead federal investigators? I thought I was protecting the company. By lying to the SEC? By not volunteering information that could be misinterpreted. I closed my eyes. That's not how it works. I know that now. Look, I made a mistake. I should have listened to you. You made several mistakes. Firing me was just the first one. I'll reinstate you. Full salary, full authority, whatever you want. It's too late for that. It's not too late. Help me fix this. I thought about the pension funds, the small businesses, the families whose savings were now frozen while federal investigators combed through Meridian's records. What exactly are you asking me to do? Help me show the investigators that this was a misunderstanding, that there was no intent to deceive. Was there intent to deceive? Another pause. I don't know anymore. At least he was being honest. James, I can't make this go away. The best I can do is to help minimize the damage. Whatever it takes. It's going to cost you. How much? Everything. The next morning, I walked back into Meridian for the first time in 6 weeks. The lobby felt like a morgue. Half the staff had been placed on administrative leave. The other half moved around like ghosts, speaking in whispers. Davidson met me at the elevator. He looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. His perfect hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. Thank you for coming, he said. Don't thank me yet. We rode to the executive floor in silence. The conference room was full of lawyers, investigators, and boxes of evidence. Davidson introduced me to the lead investigator, a woman named Patricia Moore, who looked like she could bench press a filing cabinet. Mr. Whitfield, she said, I understand you used to run compliance here. For 22 years, until Mr. Davidson eliminated your position. That's correct. She gestured to a chair. We'd like to hear your perspective on recent events. For the next 4 hours, I walked them through Meridian's compliance history, the procedures we'd followed, the the safeguards we'd maintained, the clean record we'd built. Then I explained what had changed after my departure. In your professional opinion, Agent Moore asked, were these changes sufficient to maintain regulatory compliance? I looked at Davidson. He was staring at his hands. No, I said, they were not. Can you elaborate? Effective compliance requires dedicated expertise, proper staffing, and institutional support. When Mr. Davidson eliminated my position and reduced the compliance staff by 60%, he created an environment where violations were inevitable. Were they intentional violations? This was the key question, the difference between regulatory sanctions and criminal charges. Mr. Davidson made decisions based on incomplete information and flawed assumptions. He believed compliance was an unnecessary expense rather than essential protection. His actions were reckless, but I don't believe they were deliberately criminal. Agent Moore made note. What would you recommend going forward? Full cooperation with your investigation, complete restoration of compliance infrastructure, and personal accountability from leadership. She looked at Davidson. Mr. Davidson, do you agree with Mr. Whitfield's assessment? Davidson finally raised his head. Yes, I made serious errors in judgment. I take full responsibility. Good, Agent Moore said, because that's exactly what we're going to require. The settlement negotiations took 3 months. Meridian agreed to pay $47 million in fines and penalties. Davidson resigned in disgrace, forfeiting his severance package and stock options. The board implemented new governance structures requiring independent oversight of all compliance functions. I was offered Davidson's job. I turned it down. Instead, I started my own consulting firm, helping companies build robust compliance programs. My first client was a small investment firm whose CEO had learned about Meridian's collapse and wanted to avoid the same fate. Jennifer left Meridian and joined my firm as a junior consultant. She'd learned more about regulatory compliance in 3 months of crisis than most lawyers learn in 3 years of normal practice. Do you ever feel mad for Davidson? She asked during our first week in the new office. I thought about it. I feel bad for the people who got hurt because of his decisions, the employees who lost their jobs, the clients whose funds were frozen, the shareholders who lost money. But not for him. He had good information and chose to ignore it. He had experienced people and chose to dismiss them. He had every opportunity to make better choices. And he chose profit over prudence. He chose arrogance over wisdom. 6 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Whitfield, this is James Davidson. I almost hung up. What do you want, James? I wanted to apologize and to thank you. For what? For saving my company and for keeping me out of prison. The federal investigation had concluded with civil penalties only. No criminal charges were filed, largely because I testified that Davidson's actions, while reckless, didn't constitute deliberate fraud. You saved yourself, I said, by finally telling the truth. I should have listened to you from the beginning. Yes, you should have. I'm starting over. New city, new career. I wanted you to know that I learned from this. What did you learn? That expertise matters. That experience has value. That some things can't be measured in quarterly reports. It was more self-awareness than he'd shown in his entire tenure as CEO. Good luck, James. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Today, my consulting firm employs 15 people. We work with companies across the country, building compliance programs that protect both businesses and the people they serve. Our motto, printed on every business card, comes from something I told Jennifer during those dark days after Meridian's collapse. Prevention is invisible until it's absent. I keep a photo on my desk from Meridian's 20th anniversary party. 8 smiling faces from my old compliance team, including Jennifer in her first week on the job. 7 of those people found new positions within 6 months. The 8th started his own compliance consultancy in Denver. We all learned the same lesson from Meridian's collapse. Loyalty flows both ways. Expertise has value, and sometimes the most expensive person you can hire is the one who tells you what you don't want to hear. The most expensive person you can fire is the one who's been protecting you all along. My phone rings constantly now. CEOs who've heard about Meridian and want to avoid the same fate. I help them build systems that prevent problems instead of reacting to crises. It's more rewarding than I expected, and more profitable than Davidson ever imagined. 22 years of loyalty, gone in 60 seconds, but sometimes losing everything is the first step toward building something better.